Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Mark had been on the road all week, closing deals in the next state over. It had been a good run, and he decided to treat himself to a day off, heading home Thursday night. His plan was simple. Slip into the house quietly, slide into bed, and surprise his wife of 19 years, Sarah. Even after all this time, just thinking about her gave him a little jolt. She was tall, elegant, with skin like pale china and striking red hair. They'd met on their first day at the local college. He was a recent returnee from the Vietnam War, and she was 18, starting college away from home for the first time. Sarah, back then, was long and lean, buzzing with energy, her wild red hair a beautiful mess. Her youthful spark had just drawn him in. He was 23, a big guy, a former Marine fresh from Southeast Asia, and it was love at first sight. 19 years, 2 kids later, and he was driving home to her. His favorite radio station was on, playing an old song from his college days that always made him chuckle. It was a funny story in the lyrics, about a hard-working man, his early mornings, and the milkman who visited his wife while he was away. It was a bit cheeky, a story of turning a blind eye. None of my business, the song seemed to say, just making the best of tough times. As he turned onto his street, nearing his house, he saw a car in his driveway. It was well past 2 in the morning. What the hell? He thought. Getting closer, he saw the front door ease open. The moon was full, the night bright. No lights were on inside, but he could see clearly enough. A man in dark pants and a white shirt kissed Sarah, then practically skipped down the porch steps, around his car, like some old-timey dancer. By then, Mark had pulled to the curb a couple of houses up, his headlights off. They were so wrapped up in each other, they never saw him. Surprise didn't even cover it. He was floored. Never had he suspected that their marriage wasn't all sunshine and roses. He loved Sarah deeply, and he thought she felt the same. It had never crossed his mind, not in his wildest dreams, that this could happen to him. Plenty of guys he worked with had gone through messy divorces because of cheating. He sat there on the side of the road for maybe an hour after the car drove off. Then, he saw the bathroom light flick on at the back of the house. The window faced the side and rear. He watched Sarah's shadow move around inside. The light stayed on for a long time. He figured she was showering before going back to bed. As he sat there, watching the light, he tried to figure out what to do. He honestly had no idea. But one thing he knew, he wasn't going to be a fool or a cuckold for anyone. As he sat, a plan started to form. He remembered the words of that silly song, making the best of tough times. Slowly, he drove away and checked into a cheap motel on the other side of town. He needed time to think, to form a real plan. He was angry, and he knew someone was going to pay. The man, he realized with a bitter taste in his mouth, was his low-life ex-brother-in-law, the one who had been married to Sarah's younger sister, Ginny. That dirtbag had cheated on Ginny constantly until she finally kicked him to the curb. Even when married, he'd always been a creep, trying to peek down blouses and up skirts. And Sarah had always made it clear how much she disliked him after how he treated her sister. How that snake had wormed his way into Sarah's life, Mark couldn't fathom. But he was going to find out, and that lowlife was going to suffer. Deeply. No one, least of all him, could screw Mark over and get away with it. In the motel room, scenarios played out in his head, mostly involving maximum payback with minimal risk. Prison wasn't part of his plan. Finally, morning came. He called Sarah, sounding casual. He'd be home early, around noon. She seemed happy, excited to spend the afternoon together, maybe do something special that evening. He told her to plan whatever she liked. His next call was to an old Marine buddy from Vietnam, Jerry. He needed to bounce some ideas off him, get his take on how to get even with the dirtbag and Sarah. Jerry was a good guy, and he'd been through something similar right after coming home from the war. He'd gone to prison for acting in the heat of the moment, killing the guy and seriously hurting his wife. Got off with a light sentence back in the 70s. Nowadays, he'd probably be gone for life. When he got out, Jerry had started a discreet business, word of mouth only. A fixer, for lack of a better term, all off the books under the radar. His legitimate business was landscaping, which gave him plenty of time for other projects. The landscaping paid okay. The other stuff paid incredibly well. Mark had spent time with Jerry, listening to his stories about prison and the contacts he'd made there, contacts who could make extreme things happen for clients seeking revenge. They set up a breakfast meeting for that morning. Mark loved it when a plan started to come together this fast. After calling Jerry, Mark had some time to kill. He sat there, thinking back, trying to find any clue that might have hinted at what was going on with Sarah. From what he'd seen, things weren't what he'd believed. He'd been happy, always looked forward to coming home to Sarah after a week on the road. He was usually gone 2 weeks a month. Had this thing with the dirtbag been going on long? Or was it new? He'd have to dig. His plan was to get even with both of them. He reasonably believed what he saw was a lover's goodnight kiss after a pleasant evening. Big problem. She was married to him, and the dirtbag was divorced precisely because he couldn't keep his hands to himself. As he sat there, a wave of sadness washed over him. Why me? What had I done? If Sarah wanted someone else, why him? What could that loser offer that Mark couldn't? Time would tell. His emotions spiraled. He got ready to leave to meet Jerry. Getting to his car, the tears started to flow. He wasn't usually emotional, always kept his feelings locked down tight. He hadn't expected this. His body shook, and the tears just poured out. A sob escaped him, and he leaned his head on the steering wheel, just letting it all out. He felt like his life was circling the drain, and Sarah had her hand on the flush lever. When he arrived at Denny's, Jerry was already there, watching him come in. Mark slid into the booth and Jerry offered his hand. "Hey Mark, how are you?" he asked. "Like warmed over crap," Mark replied. "Sorry to call you, but I need some advice, some help." "Okay. Tell me everything." Mark laid out what he'd seen, what he was feeling. It didn't take long because he really didn't know much, just what he'd witnessed and the awful pictures forming in his mind. "Jerry, those are the facts as I know them right now. Slim, I know. I'm hoping you can help me fill in the blanks. If it's what I think, then that dirtbag and Sarah are going to regret this." He was finding it hard to believe Sarah would cheat, especially with him, after all her talk about how awful he was to her sister. "Okay, what do you want to do?" Jerry asked. "That's why I called. You've been through this kind of thing, maybe you can guide me. I don't want them dead. Yet, my first reaction, sitting outside the house, was they're guilty, they need to be punished. Fast. I was numb and hurting all at once. Did I want to kill him? Yes. Did I want Sarah to hurt as much as I was hurting? Yes. So what next? That's why I called you. Just a couple of questions, Mark. What are your immediate plans? Are you still going to go home at noon and act like everything's fine? Yeah, that was the plan. Do you think you can keep quiet and not confront Sarah until you have more info? Yeah, I think so. Even if I can't, things will just come to a head faster. I think I can keep playing dumb and loving. I need to understand why first, before I do anything final. Okay. Mark, just promise to call me if you feel like you're losing it and need to talk. In the meantime, I'll get someone to watch your ex-brother-in-law 24/7 until we get the information we need. Remember, you're going to have to give the performance of your life. After 19 years with Sarah, she'll pick up on anything that's not normal. Be ready with a reasonable excuse. Maybe a work problem that's bothering you or something. Mark sat there thinking. Jerry was right. How was he going to face her and keep a straight face? Mark, I gotta go. I'll be in touch as soon as I know anything. Okay, yeah, sure, Mark mumbled. Jerry left. Last night, he thought he had it all figured out. Now, reality was setting in and he felt lost. He stared at his food, eventually pushing it away untouched. In another hour or so, he was supposed to go home to a happy wife, happy to see the love of his life, the woman he'd lived with for 19 years, the most important person in his world. He thought about their twin daughters, Amy and Eve, gone off to college just 2 weeks ago. Thank goodness they were out of state, hopefully out of whatever mess was brewing. He got up and left the restaurant, making it to his car before the tears started again. He just sat behind the wheel, sobbing into his hands. Deep down, he knew he couldn't face her feeling like this. He needed to get his head straight, but he had no clue how. He thought Jerry would give him clear directions, but Jerry had just listened. When he left, Mark felt no better. He knew he had to pull himself together. He decided to take the easy way out for now. He called Sarah. "Hi, honey," he said, trying to sound normal. "Listen, I'm still stuck in Illinois. The car started acting up as soon as I started it this morning, and I only got a few miles down the road before it died. It's at a dealership now, and they should know more later. I'll call you when I do." "Mark, do you want me to come get you? How far is it?" "No, it's okay. I'm sure they'll get it fixed. They haven't even looked at it yet. I'll let you know." After hanging up, he drove to the far side of the city and found a park to walk in. He walked slowly along the edge of a lake. There was a bench and he sat down. Almost immediately, some ducks started waddling towards him from the water. He was a little surprised by their attention until he heard a voice behind him. "You silly ducks, he doesn't have any food for you." "Sorry I'm late. The bus was delayed." "Got your food right here." A white-haired older man sat down beside him and started handing out bread crusts to the ducks. They crowded around, gobbling it down. "Hi, I'm Leo," the man said. "Guess I've spoiled them. I come every day, and as soon as I sit here, they flock around. Sorry if I disturbed you." "Oh, no problem. It was just a little startling at first, but it was fun to watch." "You come here every day?" "Yep, every day. If I didn't, they wouldn't get fed. Started it 2 years ago, right after my wife, Doris, died. After the family all left, I just got on the bus and rode around until I saw this park. Sat down on this bench, and this one duck came out and started pecking at my shoe. I had some crackers in my pocket, broke them up, fed the duck. It was amazing. I'd come there feeling alone and lost without Doris. But after feeding that duck, I felt at peace. Sat here all afternoon, just watching people and birds. The next morning, I grabbed all the leftover bread from the funeral meal and took the bus back. Been doing it ever since, rain or shine. What brings you here, Mark? Leo asked. For the next hour or so, Mark told Leo his story. Leo didn't say anything, just listened quietly. When Mark finished, he sat silently for a while, feeling a strange sense of relief. Eventually, Leo got to his feet, pushing up with his hands, his knees giving him trouble. That's when Mark noticed the artificial leg. He quickly stood to help, but Leo waved him off. No, I'm good now. Seated or standing, I'm okay. It's the getting back and forth that's a bit rough. Well, I better head home. If you decide to come tomorrow, Mark, bring some bread, and we'll feed the ducks together. Bye. Mark watched him walk off. He looked back at the lake for a moment, then back again. Leo was gone. He couldn't have disappeared that quickly. For some reason, Mark felt the need to stop at a grocery store and buy several loaves of bread for tomorrow. He wasn't sure why. He felt calm in Leo's company. He also wanted to see if Leo had any thoughts on his situation. He turned off his cell and headed for the motel, needing to unwind. The tension seemed to drain away as he lay in bed. He woke the next morning around 4, having slept almost 12 hours. His body must have been so tense he just passed out. He felt rested. He got up, went through his morning routine, and checked his favorite news website. By 6, he was out for breakfast. At the restaurant, he turned on his cell and saw 16 messages, all from Sarah. They started calm, but by the end, she was desperate, pleading for him to call. He called her cell, left a message saying he'd just fallen asleep and would let her know as soon as he heard about the car. He might be stuck there all weekend. He felt like a heel lying to her, but then again, she'd been lying to him. He knew she'd be at work. Sarah had never worked in her field after college. Her degree was in dental hygiene, but she'd stayed at the small diner where she'd worked her way through school. Her usual shift was 6 to 2. Her paychecks always went straight into their joint account, and she kept her tips. Over the years, she must have made good tips, always buying extras for the house or for the girls, sometimes planning vacations. She'd never shown any interest in the household finances, leaving all that to him. She didn't even have access to the main account. So, he figured he didn't have to rush home to protect their money. He looked at his watch and realized it was almost the same time he'd been in the park yesterday. He decided to go early. He drove to the park and walked towards the bench. He hadn't even sat down when he heard a step behind him. "Good morning, Mark. How are you this morning?" Leo asked. Mark turned and saw him standing at the other end of the bench. They shook hands. Leo lowered himself gently onto the seat. Before Mark could answer, Leo said, "Well, you look rested this morning. Must have slept well. How's Sarah?" "I don't really know. I assume she's okay. She was trying frantically to call me all last night and early this morning. I had my cell off so she couldn't reach me. Her last call sounded frantic. I just couldn't bring myself to talk to her." "I know how you must be feeling," Leo said, opening his bag. Almost instantly, the ducks started to arrive, some flying in, others paddling furiously. It was almost comical. They started feeding them. Mark looked down at the path, at all the ducks pushing and shoving. Leo seemed to know most of them by name. Then Mark heard him say, "Good morning, Clara. How are you on this fine morning?" He looked and saw Leo stroking the neck of a huge white swan. "Mark, this is Clara. She's a trumpeter swan. They found her wounded last year, and the wildlife people brought her here. She's too old to migrate again. Must have lost her mate. Did you know swans mate for life? If they lose their mate, many never pair up again." Mark watched him feed the swan and the ducks. Clara seemed to expect special treatment, delicately taking the bread from Leo's hand. As Leo fed the birds, he started to talk. "Mark, I thought long and hard about your situation last night. I think I might have a perspective you'd find interesting. Doris and I had our problems too, but we worked through them. We were married 40 years before she passed. You know, sometimes things aren't always what they seem. Now, I don't doubt what you saw. I completely understand your reaction. My concern is that you don't do anything until you know all the facts." Just then, Mark's cell rang. It was Jerry. "Hey, Jerry," Mark answered. "Morning, Mark. I just left your house. All the surveillance gear is set up. We should know more soon. Have you been home?" "No, I chickened out and stayed at the motel again." "I completely understand," Jerry replied. "I'll be in touch as soon as I have anything." "Now," Leo continued, "Doris and I had been married about 7 or 8 years when a new neighbor moved in down the road. We were farmers, and he'd just bought the place from the estate of our oldest neighbor. Moved in around May 1st. Like all farmers, we went down to bring him some of Doris's rhubarb pie. His name was Harold. Good-looking young man. He started being all polite and helpful towards Doris. About 10 years younger than us, real confident. He kept giving Doris all this attention, ignoring me like I wasn't even there, helped her get seated, fawned all over her. Now, I'll admit, to anyone else it probably looked innocent. But to me, he just seemed slimy. I figured we should make our visit short and get Doris out of there. She seemed a little put out that I made her leave before she was ready. Thought I was rude, frankly. Didn't care. I just wanted them apart. Right then and there, I decided to keep an eye on things. Didn't want a snake slithering into my henhouse. Especially not after my hen. It was spring, and I had long hours in the fields, sometimes out of sight of the house. One day, a week or so later, I was way out in the back field when I saw a dust cloud coming down the road towards the house. Now, we lived at the dead end of the road, didn't usually have drop-in visitors. Neighbors wanting to see me would usually drive to the edge of the property and either park on the road or drive into the field. Doris had her ladies' club on Thursdays, but this was a Tuesday. I decided to see who it was. I hopped off my old John Deere and let it idle. A farmer knows the difference between idling and pulling, city folks wouldn't. I took a shortcut through the pasture and came up on the house from the blind side. Peeked in the kitchen window. Sure enough, it was that snake, Harold, from down the road. He was all over Doris while she tried to serve him coffee and pie. She was lapping up all the personal attention he was giving her. Doris was a farm girl, not used to city slicker compliments. He was smooth with his words, and she seemed to be enjoying the flattery. As I watched, he got up to help her with the dishes, standing real close behind her. His nearness seemed to catch her off guard. She stiffened a little, unsure how to react. "Oh, Harold, you mustn't do that. You know I'm married, and Leo wouldn't like it." "Well, Leo isn't here, is he? You liked it, didn't you?" Doris was flustered. I'm sure she didn't know how to handle that kind of pressure from a man she barely knew. Now I was boiling. I almost went in and confronted him. But I figured it wasn't Doris's fault. That snake was good at charming women. Right then, I decided Doris wasn't going to be the next one he corrupted. I slipped around the house and stuck a nail under his back tire, wedging it in so when he backed up, it would go right in. Just a little inconvenience, I figured. The tire probably wouldn't go all the way flat before he got home. Then I stomped up the front steps and into the house. "Doris, whose truck is that out there?" I yelled. I heard chairs move in the kitchen, and Doris hurried into the living room. "Leo, what are you doing back so soon? I wasn't expecting you till supper." "Oh, Sam stopped by. Gave me a ride around on the road, so I could get some ice water. Sure is hot out there." "Say, whose truck is that?" "That's Harold's. He just stopped by to bring the picnic basket back and to say how much he liked the rhubarb pie." About that time, Harold came out of the kitchen, said goodbye to Doris, and barely nodded at me. Over the next few days, I stuck close to the house, close to Doris. That snake made a point of coming by every couple of days. Problem for him was I was always around. No way was he going to get his hands on my wife again. I was getting real tired of his games. Time to teach him a lesson about leaving other men's wives alone. I made a couple of midnight visits to his place. Played a little mischief. Caught a big bull snake, put it in a sack, and slipped it into the cab of Harold's truck. Farm folks know bull snakes aren't dangerous. But city people? They'd about crap their pants thinking it's a rattlesnake. They don't have rattles, but who's gonna check real close when one's right in your face when you open the truck door? I wish I could have seen his face. Giggled all the way home. The second time, I just let the air out of all his tires. Hoped he'd get the message. Guess not. He must have been full of himself, really wanted my wife. No way was that happening. A week went by, and he showed up twice. Both times thinking I was gone. I'm sure he was getting frustrated with me showing up just as he was about to make his move on Doris. Now, you gotta remember, Doris was pretty naive. I was her only man. She was a virgin when she came to my bed. I had a little experience in Korea back in '50. I knew a snake when I saw one. I finally decided to take the snake by the tail. Drove down to Harold's place. As I pulled up, Harold came out of the house. No pretense of being friendly. He knew I didn't like him and he didn't like me. Problem was, he had no respect for me. Thought he was better, smarter, and younger, of course. "What do you want, Leo?" he said with a smirk. "Harold, old buddy. I want you to stay off my place and stay away from my wife." "What if I don't? What are you going to do about it, old man?" "You've had your warning. Don't come on my place again. There's an old saying, you mess with the bull, you get the horns. Remember that." I got back in my truck and drove home. Did I think he'd stay away? Nope. Too self-absorbed to do the smart thing. I challenged him and he wanted to win the prize. My Doris. Wasn't going to happen. Not if I had anything to say about it. Thanks for listening. This story isn't over yet, and things are about to get even more intense. Stay tuned for the next part to see what happens next.